2334, regulated by the Division of Real Estate.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
This is the Ross Kaminsky Show.
You're a great American.
He's a great guy.
Now, Ross Kaminsky on Denver's talk station, 630 KHAL.
Good morning. It's Wednesday. I'm Ross. Thanks for being here. We're up on YouTube. If you go to youtube.com and type in Ross Kaminsky, you'll see the live feed. Me with my relatively new haircut, although I haven't shaved in a long time. I have a great face for radio. I'll tell you what. Every once in a while, as I'm listening to our news broadcasts here on KHAL, I hear a story that I hadn't heard before, and sometimes I, punch it up on this old interwebs thing and find something that is just worth talking about, at least for a moment. And I want to do that right now because this was just such a funny story that I hadn't heard about until I heard it, 2 minutes ago on the news here on KHAL. I'm going to go to businessinsider.com, although a few different websites have the story. Here's the headline. Paris authorities hit with, quote, absurd $110,000 government fine for adding too many women in senior positions. Oh, it's funny when wokeness jumps the shark. Paris authorities were fined on Tuesday for employing too many women in senior positions in 2018. They put 11 women and 5 men in senior positions, meaning that nearly 70% of the appointments went to women. This breached a national law on gender parity. 11 women and 5 men. I need to do the math here for a second. Let's see. So that would be 11 and a 6. So that would be 69% of the positions went to women. So yeah, I guess your maximum would be 9 out of 16 to not go over 60%. The Sauvadet law, repealed in 2019, said no more than 60% of appointments at senior levels should go to one gender. Now, so that part wasn't even in the news. That's even funnier. They got fined based on a law that doesn't exist anymore. France's public service ministry fined Paris city authorities 90,000 euros, or about $110,000, for breaking the rule in 2018. The rule was meant to ensure that more women within the civil service were promoted to senior levels. The mayor said that she'd take the check to the French government in person. The deputy mayors and other female staff members would accompany her. I'm happy to announce that we have been fined, she joked in a meeting. The management of City Hall has all of a sudden become far too feminist. She described the fine as absurd, unfair, irresponsible, and dangerous. She said, yes, we need to promote women with determination and vigor because everywhere France is still lagging behind. Now, let me just say, just for the heck of it, as long as we're going to go down this road of stupid laws in France or stupid policies by NASDAQ trying to force private organizations or government to do things that actually private organizations mostly and governments mostly are doing already, then you might as well let the people who support that stuff get punished by it. And I have to say, actually, to give some credit to the French, it was actually kind of, and then not sarcasm, it was actually kind of smart of them if they were going to pass a stupid law to begin with. It was kind of smart of them to not just say women must represent X percent, but to say, no gender can make up more than, Y percent. In this case, 60%. I don't know what the minimum was. But there is a whole bigger thing that we're not going to really get into much today, but it ties into our conversation with Mary Eberstadt yesterday and other things that we've talked about on the show over years now, including issues of the education of young boys compared to girls and all this. And there has been for quite some time this massive push against men. even now you've got, and look, I'm not paranoid about it, and I don't really think it's hurting me, but still, it's a stupid thing, and I don't like stupid things that are society-wide. And I just like the idea of people being, as they say, hoisted on their own petard, although I think that phrase is sometimes used incorrectly, but still, you might as well have liberals have to pay a fine, because it's not, in my mind, this isn't really a fine for having too many women on the city council or in senior positions, rather, in Paris. Rather, it's a fine for not understanding Bastiat. After all, he was French. You should understand him better than most, you Paris people. And not understanding that almost always when the government does something that they claim has some really good intention, there's almost always some really bad after effect. And just for not understanding that or not caring about it, you do deserve to be punished. I mean, these days, you've all heard the phrase toxic masculinity. I take toxic masculinity most of the time, and it's been applied to me once or twice on Twitter. I take that as a compliment. Like, I mean, at least there's still some masculinity around. And I'm not saying I'm the archetype of whatever you might think of as masculinity. I'm fine. I'm a reasonably manly man. But the whole idea that there are all these people out there who would call almost any behavior that falls into the traditional definition of what men do or should do, calling that toxic, those are the toxic people. The people who use a term like toxic masculinity are the toxic people. And I'll tell you what, I thank goodness from time to time for conservative women in particular. These are the women, hardcore conservative Republican, in fact, often Trump-supporting women, who are they are the ones who stand up for men and say men and women are different, which they are. And, when a guy does something that guys do, a guy is being protective or chivalrous or even maybe slightly over-aggressive in pursuit of something, that's okay. That's what men are for. And, you have a lot of these women out there saying, that's what men are for. We appreciate it. We celebrate it. It's not toxic. Don't stop. Right? And for all of the women out there who do that and who stand up for men being men, thank you very much. That was not sarcasm, by the way. All right. So I love that story, though. Being fined for having too many women in senior positions. Talk about jumping the shark. Oh, that's great. Okay. There's a story that is getting a lot of attention in England, not that much attention in the United States in terms of the media, although the federal government has reacted to this story a little bit. And I want to share this with you. This is really something. How many of you have heard in recent days and weeks, because I think the story is relatively new, about the Chinese government essentially using slave labor to pick cotton? Have you heard this story? I mean, we were talking a couple of days ago. Oh, that reminds me. I got a great email from a listener that I need to find and share with you. But we were talking the other day about the passing of Charley Pride, one of the great, great country music stars. And Charley Pride was talking about how when Jackie Robinson made the major leagues, and after that, for a while, Charley was in the cotton fields picking cotton with his dad, and I made a comment along the lines of, that was the late 1940s into the 1950s, and I think we often think about African Americans in the field picking cotton as something from a century before that, and yet there it was. And so it was, I can't remember the last time I thought in any depth about somebody in a field picking cotton. It's one of those things where you don't think about something or you've never heard of something, and then suddenly you think about it or hear about it multiple times in a short period of time. You know what I'm talking about. So here's a story from 2 weeks ago that relates to the United States, and then I'm going to bring you an update from the BBC in a second. The Trump administration expanded economic pressure on China's western region of Xinjiang, banning cotton imports from a powerful Chinese quasi-military organization that it says uses the forced labor of detained Uyghur Muslims. Customs and Border Protection said that its withhold release order would ban cotton and cotton products from the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps. Right? That's all capitalized. That's a company name. One of China's largest cotton producers. Now, of course, China says the stuff about it isn't true, but the Trump administration is going ahead with this. The ban against this company, which produced 30% of China's cotton in 2015, could have a huge effect on companies globally involved in selling textiles and apparel to the United States. It follows a Treasury Department ban in July on all dollar transactions with that particular company, which was founded in 1954 to settle the far western part of China. Gosh. Now, this story is mostly about the economic part of it and the trade part of it. But I want to go to a BBC story that I saw yesterday that is just unbelievable. Well, I suppose it's believable. China is forcing hundreds of thousands of Uyghurs. So Uyghurs are a Muslim minority population in Western China. It's spelled Uighur, Uyghur, and other minorities into hard manual labor in the vast cotton fields of its western region of Xinjiang, according to new research seen by the BBC. Based on newly discovered online documents, it provides the first clear picture of the potential scale of forced labor in the picking of a crop that accounts for a fifth of the world's cotton supply and is used widely throughout the global fashion industry. Alongside a large network of detention camps in which more than 1 million are thought to have been detained, allegations that minority groups are being coerced into working in textile factories have already been well documented. The Chinese government denies the claims, insisting that the camps are, quote, vocational training schools. If there were a Chinese George Orwell. And the factories are part of a massive and voluntary, quote, poverty alleviation scheme. But new evidence suggests that upwards of 500,000 minority workers a year are being marshaled into seasonal cotton picking under conditions that again appear to raise a high risk of coercion. They quote a researcher, says, for the first time, we not only have evidence of Uyghur forced labor in manufacturing and garment making, it's directly about the picking of cotton. Anyone who cares about ethical sourcing has to look at Xinjiang, which is 85% of China's cotton and 20% of the world's cotton, and say, we can't do this anymore. Now, you're absolutely right. It keeps shirt prices low. It does. And as a dyed-in-the-wool capitalist, or in this case, dyed-in-the-cotton capitalist, I do appreciate apparel prices being kept low, but there are some lines I won't cross in order to get a cheap shirt. And actually, most of my shirts aren't that cheap. But, oh, you know what? Oh, Shannon, this is a really nice shirt, isn't it? Dude, I bought this at Goodwill for $3. I was in Goodwill looking for a power cord, because sometimes you get a power cord there for $1. And at the end of the shirt rack was this really nice polo shirt, and it's a great material, and it was $3. So I bought this at Goodwill. Anyway, so I like cheap stuff. It's why I like international trade. It's why I guess I am, depending on your definition of it, a globalist. It's why I don't feel a great need for the United States to be self-sufficient in everything. But I won't cross a line of having slaves be involved in the production of something I wear or use or eat. And I think to the extent that this story gets out more, I think the world is going to push back very hard on this. Here's the problem. And this isn't talked about much in the United States, but because of the way Donald Trump approached challenging China, namely without bringing any of our allies alongside us to challenge China, whether European allies or Pacific allies, in the last 6 months, even through coronavirus, believe it or not, and before that too, China has gotten much stronger, not weaker. And unfortunately, it's because since President Trump didn't engage with, countries across the Pacific Rim, China went and did a massive trade deal. It's not the ultimate free trade deal, but a very big deal with all of these Asian countries and Australia that we're not part of. And China is growing fast now, faster than before. Even though we're fighting with them, they're just picking off everyone else. So we'll see. One of the very, very few potential upsides with the Biden administration, and I'm not counting my chickens even on this one, is that maybe they'll bring some allies in to go after China. There's a lot of worry that the Biden administration will be too easy on China. I'm not sure that that's going to be true. We'll see. In any case, now it looks like we may have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of something close to serfs or slaves in China picking cotton. How will the world react? We'll see. So far, the story is not getting much coverage in America. When we come back, remember, we had Pastor Mark Hotelling on the show a few days ago. His church is challenging restrictions on capacity at the church. The Supreme Court has spoken.
This is Denver's Talk Station with Ross Kaminsky now. Tom Martino at 10, 630 KHOW, Denver. Now,